Hi, everyone. Welcome to week 2 of our Roswell book reads. We are currently reading Loose Ends. We are on chapters 4 and 5. We read 3 last week. We're just going to do 1 live tonight. And me and Michelle are going to read, and then we'll have Jess for a recap. So I'm going to bring on Michelle. Bringing on Michelle. We're going to introduce ourselves again. Hello, everybody. It's good to see you.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. I love the jacket.
Thanks, right?
Yes.
It was definitely interesting to try to use a sewing machine for the first time. So I got to learn a lot making this little jacket, sewing these patches on.
Good. Good.
Am I blurry?
A little bit. I was going to say, should we ask people in the chat if they can see and hear us okay? But you are blurry on my end. You're very pixelated.
Do I seem pixelated, folks? Jess, am I blurry for you? Very blurry. Let me try to see if I can turn.
You're like frozen. You froze on me. You might have to leave and come back. I'm not sure.
Does that help at all?
I can see you again, but you're still blurry.
Jess, did you say yes, that helps? Okay, I see yes. I'm not sure if it's the same yes.
Okay, I'm putting a pinned comment in the chat because, as some of you know, we are reading for and trying to, just raise awareness about some good organizations out there to hopefully fundraise if you want to donate. So I chose the organization tonight. So it is down below. Everyone's saying you're still blurry. I'm fine. You're blurry. Jess is saying better now.
Okay.
Are you on your Wi-Fi?
Yeah, I'm on my Wi-Fi right now.
Okay.
Still looks like my cell phone is trying to compete, even though I turned the data off.
Could be why. All right, well, she's working on that. Okay, there you're back. We'll introduce ourselves again real briefly. I'm Christy. I am 34, been a Roswell fan since the beginning. Big Liz Parker fan. Of course, she's like my inspiration. So is Sherry. And also Max and Liz fan, Alex and Isabel fan, Michael and Maria, love Kyle and Isabel, and Kyle and Tess as well. Did not know about the books until Jess let me know. I thought the Roswell High ones were the only ones that existed, but they are not. So we are reading these lovely, rare, and collectible books. So, Michelle, if you want to introduce yourself again for those who didn't hear you last time.
Yeah, hi, my name's Michelle. I'm 37. I've been a Roswell fan since the beginning. Huge Max and Liz fan, of course, but I also love me some Michael and Maria. Been watching the seasons probably 2 to 3 times a year for the past 2 decades. Just a huge fan. So happy to be here to read these books out loud.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I'm going to shortly tell you about the organization that we're raising awareness for that you can read about if you want to donate. They are the National Alliance on Mental Illness, which is the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization. It's dedicated to building better lives for millions of Americans affected by mental illness. they do a lot of so many things. Like it would take up almost a whole hour if I really actually got into it. But they do a lot of education for those who are not really aware of how mental illness can affect friends and family. And they have mental health awareness walks. They have a helpline for those who just need support and free information. So that is actually 1-800-950-NAMI, which is 6264. I believe that's just for those in the States, if you're watching this. So the NAMI helpline can be reached Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And that's 1-800-950-6264. Or you can also email info@nami.org. And their tagline is, because we're in this together, you're not alone. And that is just a really important organization to me because I suffer with mental illness. I've been diagnosed with 3 mental illnesses. Mainly, I struggle with depression and anxiety, which I know is very, very common among all of us, especially right now at this time. So that covers that. So I think we're going to get started so we can get through chapters 4 and 5. And I believe, Michelle, you said you were going to read chapter 4.
Yep. Just one more check. Am I super blurry to you still, or?
You're better. You're
Okay.
much better now.
Yay. Perfect.
So Jeff said that too. So
I don't see any more updates in the chat, so I can't tell for some reason.
no. So hello to everyone. Right. I'm waving at everybody, but I'm glad to see a lot of you here. So
exciting. All right. Well, I will get started with chapter 4. I practiced this once, so a little grace here. It should work well this time. What are you talking about? Michael challenged Max. Water dripped somewhere nearby, each steady drop echoing through the subterranean grotto. Haven't you heard a word we've said? It's too dangerous, Max. The dark-haired alien teen was undaunted by his friend's fervent outburst. I've told you all before, Max said, the once and future king of a distant alien world. He had seldom sounded more resolute. I'm not going to let him get away. Isabel approached her brother, laying a concerned hand upon his shoulder. But you don't have to follow him now, she pointed out. You heard what Alex said. We know where he's going to be tonight, at that place, Slaughter Canyon. Slaughter. The name sent a chill through Liz, rattling her already jangled nerves. She knew she ought to have some opinion about Max's reckless plan, but she was still too stressed out to think straight. Every time she tried to concentrate, she kept flashing back to that day at the crashdown. Angry voices exploding, a noisy scuffle at the booth. Watch out, he's got a gun. I don't care, Max said. What if he gets spooked and doesn't show up at midnight? He paced restlessly across the floor of the grotto. I'm not going to take that chance. Okay, Maria conceded, knowing as well as any of them how stubborn Max could be when he felt strongly about something. Like when he tried to get me back, Liz thought, after that whole scene with Tess. But don't you at least want to know what Morton's up to before you do something stupid? It felt strange, Liz thought, to actually have a name for the man who had once nearly killed her, and even stranger that she had gone all this time without knowing it. Morton. It was a surprisingly mundane label for such a malignant presence in her life. Is that his first name, his last name? She wondered, and did that really matter? Meanwhile, Maria was still reading the riot act to Max. Use your superpowered Czechoslovakian brain, Max. She threw up her hands in sheer exasperation. Right now, you have no idea what you'd be getting yourself mixed up with. Her cautionary words must have gotten through to Max because he paused and mulled them over before replying. All right, he said, sounding slightly less combative. I won't do anything rash until we know more, but I am going to follow him and find out where he's going now. Okay, Michael grudgingly agreed, but I'm going with you, just to make sure you don't get carried away on this whole avenging boyfriend kick. Was that what was driving Max? Liz asked silently. Even in her own distracted state, she was aware that Max was acting more recklessly than usual. Does he feel he has to pay Morton back for hurting me? Or does he blame Morton for making him reveal his powers, putting them all in danger from the special unit in the skins? Fine, Max told Michael. Let's go. He marched briskly toward the grotto's exit, then paused right underneath the natural limestone archway. The rest of you look after Liz. Make sure she gets out of here okay. He slowed long enough to look back at Liz with concern. We'll hook up with you again later. A sudden fear that Max was going to get himself hurt, or worse, over some misguided, chivalric impulse flashed through Liz's brain. She saw the murderous gunman firing his weapon again, this time at her boyfriend and soulmate. Please, Max, she urged him. Be careful. Yeah, Maria seconded that with anguished emotion. Both of you play it safe, will you? Worry radiated from her naked, openly emotional face. Remember, we know this guy is armed and dangerous. So are we, Max reminded them before disappearing into the tunnel outside the grotto. Liz listened as his and Michael's footsteps swiftly receded into the distance. Boy, Alex commented, shaking his head in disbelief. When did Max turn into such a hard ass? He was starting to sound like Dirty Harry there. He's just worried about Liz, I think, Maria said doubtfully. The scary part is we're expecting Michael to be the sensible one. She gave Liz another encouraging hug, perhaps to reassure herself as much as her shell-shocked best friend. Well, what do you say, girlfriend? Are you up to blowing this underground popsicle stand? I don't know about you, but I'm ready to see the sun again. She toyed with the silver pendant around her neck. If cool chicks like us were meant to live underground, then we wouldn't look so great with a tan. Okay, I guess, Liz said. Her legs still felt a little rubbery, but she supposed she could manage to make her way back to the surface again. Maybe I'll feel less trapped, less frightened once I get out of these endless caves. A pang of regret stabbed her heart as she wondered whether her upsetting run-in with Morton had ruined the caves for her forever. Only this morning, Carlsbad Cavern had represented a carefree childhood memory to her. Now she just wanted to get as far away from these gloomy caverns as possible. Her arm around Liz's shoulders, Maria guided Liz out of the grotto, into the press of foot traffic surging through the big room. Alex stepped close to Liz as well, so that she was bracketed protectively between her friends as they slowly made their way back towards the rest area. Isabel, he called out after a moment or two, you coming with us? The glamorous alien teenager shook her head. Not right away. There's something else I have to do first. Huh, Alex said, mystified. He lingered upon the trail, blocking traffic somewhat, torn between keeping up with Liz and Maria and finding out what his frequently enigmatic dream girl was planning. Why? What? No questions, Alex, she instructed him decisively. Like her brother, Isabel could seldom be dissuaded once she'd made up her mind. They were royalty, after all. Liz remembered, albeit not from this planet. Help Maria get Liz to the surface. I'll join you there later. But, Alex begun, completely disoriented by this baffling turn of events. Liz had to admit she didn't understand either. Just do it, Alex, Isabel insisted, turning her back and heading the other way. Alex strained his neck to keep her in view, but within moments she had disappeared into the milling bob of amateur spelunkers. Come on, Alex, Maria said, calling him back to the task at hand, namely, ferrying Liz back to the world above. I'm sure our friend, the space princess, will find us once she's finished her mysterious alien business. Lowering her voice, she whispered clandestinely into Liz's ear, What on earth is that all about? I have no idea, Liz thought. Lieutenant David Ramirez, currently assigned to White Sands Missile Range, was wishing he'd never heard of Joe Morton. How the hell did I get mixed up in this mess? He'd asked himself gloomily, but he already knew the answer. Morton had plenty of dirt on him. The drugs, the gambling, the whole thing, plus connections with enough cash to let Ramirez pay off his debts and start a new life somewhere else if he had to. Blackmail and bribery were a potent combination, one that he'd been unable to resist. I should have never opened my mouth about that damn UFO. He leaned against the metal guardrail, staring morosely into the unplumbed depths of the bottomless pit, which seemed about as black and abysmal as his current prospects. He had no illusions what would happen to him if his superiors found out about his dealings with Morton. At best, he'd be talking about court-martial. At worst, he'd just quietly disappear without any fuss, as though he had never existed at all. This was high treason, after all, involving some of the government's most closely guarded secrets. Maybe it won't turn out that way, he thought desperately. Maybe the entire operation will go off as planned. He had to think so, otherwise he might as well hurl himself into the pit right now. Think of the money, he told himself, trying hard to look on the bright side. If I don't get caught, if Morton comes through with his side of the bargain, I'll be set for life. He could just serve out his term of duty, exit the Air Force with an honorable discharge, then settle down to live a life of luxury someplace very far from here, where no one has ever heard of Roswell or the crash. Yeah, he murmured wistfully. That was the ticket. Someplace nice and warm on a beach, maybe with a big house, big cars and a sexy babe or two, with long blonde hair and built like, excuse me, do you have the time? Startled, he looked up from the pit to find his fantasy standing right next to him, only inches away. He blinked behind his sunglasses, taken aback by the breathtaking vision that seemed to have stepped right out of his steamier daydreams. She was young, 18, 19 probably, and quite simply gorgeous. Lustrous, sandy blonde hair falling down over her shoulders, glossy, pouting lips, smooth, flawless skin, even bundled up against the coolness of the caverns, wearing a partly opened tan suede jacket over a blue cashmere sweater, she obviously possessed the enticing curves of a good old-fashioned pinup girl. Seductive brown eyes looked onto his, and Ramirez felt his heart skip a beat. The time? She asked again. She had a throaty, sultry voice that pushed his buttons in all the right ways. He was over 6 feet tall, but she was tall enough to look him directly in the eyes. Talk about hot, he thought eagerly. Oh, yeah, no problem, he burbled. Somehow he managed to tear his eyes away from hers long enough to pick up his wristwatch. It's about 12:45, he told her helpfully. Thanks, she said with a smile. Encouragingly, she didn't seem to be in a hurry to move on now that he'd just answered her query. Sorry to bother you, but there's just no way to tell what time it is down here away from the sky and all. She unzipped her jacket the rest of the way, revealing more of the amply filled blue sweater underneath. It's like we've stepped outside of time, you know, into a whole new world with completely different rules. I'd like to break a few rules with you, he thought lewdly. Part of him knew he had more important things to worry about than trying to make time with some chick, no matter how sensational she was. Another part of him, however, welcomed the distraction. God knows this babe was easy on the eyes and a hell of a lot more appealing than Joe Morton. Yeah, he agreed readily. This place is pretty impressive, isn't it? I'll say, she breathed huskily. She leaned over the guardrail, gazing down into the pit. Wow, that's a long way down, she exclaimed, then stumbled backwards, tottering steadily upon her shapely denim-clad legs while placing a hand over her forehead. Oh, I feel dizzy, she whispered, swooning so dramatically that he had to rush forward to keep her from collapsing onto the floor of the cavern. His arm slid deftly beneath hers as her weight sagged against his chest. Hey there, he said, feeling her taut body pressed against his. The heady scent of her hair filled his nostrils while his hands gently stroked her back, though in his opinion, far too many layers of clothing. Are you okay? He asked, marveling inwardly at his luck. This keeps getting better and better. I'm fine, I think, she murmured. Her head rested on his shoulder. She clung to him for support, perhaps waiting for the dizziness to pass. He was perfectly happy to just hold on to her for as long as necessary, and then some. Just a touch of vertigo, she shivered delectably. You must think I'm terribly weak. No, not at all, he assured her. As far as he was concerned, her sudden vulnerability just made her sexier. That's a pretty steep drop-off, he laughed, in what he hoped was an irresistibly debonair fashion. They don't call it the bottomless pit for nothing. She lifted her head to look at him with grateful brown eyes. A devastating smile melted away the worries of the day, at least for a moment. That's sweet of you to say so, she declared. I bet you're never afraid of heights. How could he resist a cue like that? Actually, I'm a test pilot, he volunteered, for the Air Force. Really? Her awestruck tone was a tonic to his ego, which had been seriously battered by recent events. Never fails, he thought smugly. Chicks love the whole Top Gun thing. Blushing, she seemed to realize that she was still snugly clasped into his arms. He repressed a frustrated sigh as she reluctantly extracted herself from his grasp and took a few steps backward. She was still close enough, though, that he could smell her hair and savor the contours of her voluptuous figure. My name's Isabel, she said. Isabel DeLuca. She looked him over flirtatiously. What's yours? Am I blurry? Am I good?
You're good. I'm just responding to the comments, which are...
I was like, oh, maybe I'm not visible anymore. All right.
No, you're good.
He hesitated, uncertain whether to divulge his real name. There was a lot at stake here, and he didn't want to make a fatal mistake just because this girl was a knockout. Then again, he thought, scoping her out from top to bottom, where's the harm? He wasn't violating any regulations by spending the weekend at Carlsbad. For as far as anyone knew, he was just checking out the local tourist attractions and talent. Behind his shades, his eyes greedily devoured Isabel as, fanning herself with one hand, she slowly slipped out of her jacket, which she folded over the metal guardrail. She leaned back languidly against the rail, coyly watching him watching her. In fact, he realized, mouth-watering, he might get himself into more trouble if he started fabricating things unnecessarily. What was that old saying about lies and tangled webs? Lieutenant David Ramirez, at your service, he said confidently, throwing caution to the winds as he removed his sunglasses and tucked them into one of the inner pockets of his flight jacket. Currently stationed at White Sands Missile Range. Her eyes widened just like he hoped they would. Isn't that where they're testing the Star Wars missile defense system? She asked, displaying rather more knowledge of current events than he expected. Are you involved with any of that? Conveniently, he had a perfectly legitimate excuse for being evasive. I'm afraid I'm not at liberty to discuss my specific duties, he said ominously. A little intrigue and mystery could only enhance his image, he figured. Matters of national security, you understand, strictly classified on a need-to-know basis. Oh, right, of course, she said, nodding. I should have realized. Her baby doll pout deepened as she peered up at him through thick, curling lashes. Can't you give me just a hint, though? Sure, he said lightly, but then I'd have to kill you. He laughed again to make it clear he was joking, sort of, while hastily pondering his next move. Should he try to lure her back to his motel room in White City, or just try to get her phone number? A red-hot afternoon fling would sure take his mind off his midnight meeting with Morton, and everything that could go wrong there. But what if she accidentally stumbled onto the merchandise? Then he'd have to kill her for real. So are you from around here? He asked curiously. If she was a tourist visiting from God knows where, then he'd have to move quickly if he wanted to score with her. Even with the whole Morton mess hanging over his head, it would be a crying shame to let an opportunity and a hottie like this go to waste. It's mortifying to me. Oh, sure, Isabel replied. I was born and raised in I think it's Artesia. That's south of Roswell, right? Until today, he hadn't got off the base much. By about 50 miles or so, she confirmed. Midway between Carlsbad and Roswell, actually. Sultry brown eyes probed his. You ever been to Roswell? She asked innocently. He mentally kicked himself for even mentioning the R word, just when he was finally succeeding in getting his mind off classified government secrets and their sale. Say, you got any plans for this afternoon? He inquired impulsively, changing the subject. Maybe we could go for drinks or something. This isn't too smart, he realized, even as he stepped closer to the alluring young woman, flashing his most ingratiating smile. Now that he knew she was local, he should just play it cool and look her up after his business with Morton was wrapped up. I can't help it, though, he thought, unable to resist the almost magnetic attraction drawing him onward. I mean, look at her. Unfortunately, her immediate response to his invitation was an embarrassed wince. Gee, that sounds great, but I promised my friends I'd hook up with them up top. She glanced at the paved walkway leading away from the bottomless pit. In fact, I'm probably running late already. Damn. He knew a brush-off when he heard one. So much for a world outside of time, he thought irritably. His restored spirits and mounting excitement went into a nosedive. Time-wasting little tease. Don't tell me she wasn't flirting with me shamelessly this whole time. Then after he had already written her off, Isabel smiled slyly and said, You know, Mr. Lieutenant, I'd love to see you in uniform sometime. I'll bet you look just like Tom Cruise. She reached over and adjusted the lapel of his flight jacket. Maybe you can give me your phone number? Maybe his lurid fantasies weren't quite dead after all. Sure, he said, if you'll give me yours. Another sheepish wince, followed by an inviting gaze. I'd rather give you a call if that's all right, she shrugged, her shoulders tossing her flowing blonde hair at the same time. It's complicated, she explained vaguely. A jealous boyfriend, he speculated, overprotective parents. Frankly, he didn't need those kinds of hassles either. Seeing nothing to lose and plenty to gain, he scribbled down his cell phone number on a scrap of paper and he found in his wallet. Here, he said cheerfully, handing her the improvised note. You can reach me there most of the time, except when I'm on duty, of course. Naturally, she replied. She folded the slip of paper carefully and placed it into her back pocket. I've got to run, she said, retrieving her jacket and slipping it back on. But I'll be in touch, I promise. I sure hope so, Ramirez thought, eyeing her hungrily as she hurried onto the trail back to the rest area and the elevator. Chances were he might never hear from her again, but even still, his accidental meeting with this hot little number was the luckiest break he'd had in a long, long time. Now he just had to get through this weekend without ending up behind bars, or worse. Men, Isabel Evans thought with disdain. Human or alien, they were all the same. Flirt with them a little, bat your big brown eyes adoringly, and you could get them to do almost anything. Lieutenant Ramirez hadn't even put up a fight. Whatever his full story was, he'd been just as easy to manipulate as the high school boys she was used to wrapping around her little finger. As she rushed back towards the elevator, she worried briefly about whether she had maybe laid the vamped act on a little too thick. He had that whole dizzy spell routine been too much? What if she tipped her hand when she fell into his arms, raising his suspicions instead of lowering his defenses? Nah, she decided promptly. He'd fallen for it hook, line, and sinker. She could tell. Another woman would have seen through that transparent ploy right away, but as she'd learned repeatedly since sixth grade at the latest, subtlety was lost on most members of the male gender. Sometimes you couldn't be too obvious, especially where men were concerned. Besides, she reflected, I could have been more blatant given the settings. Stalagmites, caverns, unexplored nether regions, the possibilities for smutty double entendres had been almost too readily available. Not that I needed them, she thought with a smirk. Her confidence in her own time-tested techniques and tactics gave way to unsettling fears and suspicions as she considered the information she had managed to extract from the lecherous lieutenant. Classified military experiments at White Sands. Isabel chewed nervously on her lower lip, disturbed by the possible implications of Ramirez's background. Visions of top-secret alien autopsies and extraterrestrial artifacts paraded behind her fretful brown eyes, awakening deep-rooted fears and anxieties that were never very far from her thoughts. What was an Air Force test pilot doing with the man who shot Liz 2 years ago? Could these shady goings-on have had anything to do with Roswell's hidden alien secrets? The last few years had taught Isabel to be distrustful of almost everything and everyone, including herself. A high school counselor, a congresswoman, a deputy, a waitress, new friends and admirers, all had proven to be hidden dangers. She couldn't help worrying that her unearthly heritage was about to catch up with her again. Won't it ever end? She asked bitterly, waiting in line for the elevator back to the surface. Won't we ever be safe anywhere on this planet? Ta-ta!
Some pretty creepy.
What a creeper. Ramirez is a creeper.
I was reading the whole time like, wait, how old was the lieutenant? Did they say? I don't know if I missed it.
But for him to classify her as young, maybe 18 or 19, he realizes that she's young and vulnerable. And what a creeper the lieutenant is.
I don't know. Something about older men and a younger woman. That's just a thing.
I really hope that
and
men don't think that way.
Like, she's 16, right? At this point in the book, or 17 at least. So, I mean, gosh. Oh, just 35. So.
30? Sorry. I'm like, that's so old, and I'm 37. Wow. What an old guy.
Yes.
All right. Did you want to let Jess hop on here with you while you read the next chapter, or you want me to stay?
Whichever.
I just didn't know how blurry I am, and I can't read any of the comments while I'm here.
What do you prefer, Jess? Let us know. And in the meantime, thanks to somebody who gave 25 for NAMI. That's awesome. So thank you very much. We're just doing this to raise awareness, so it's just totally optional if you want to donate or not, but we appreciate those of you who do, or even just read about NAMI. That's awesome. So it'll go to a good place. So no, she said you can stay, Michelle. Her kid is too loud right now, so you are staying for the time being.
I'll try not to pick my nose or do anything embarrassing.
Okay. All right. Chapter 5. So, Alex said, flagrantly trying to take Liz's mind off her nerve-wracking brush with Joe Morton. There's just one thing about this whole alien royalty bit I don't understand. If Max is Luke Skywalker, Michael is Han Solo, and Isabel is Princess Leia, what does that make the rest of us? I can't speak for myself, Maria said, but I always thought there was something very C-3PO about you. Thanks a lot, Alex replied in mock indignation. He balanced on the back of a wood bench outside the visitor center, his tennis shoes resting on the timbered seat of the bench next to Liz and Maria. Hey, don't complain, Maria warned. I could have said Chewbacca or Jar Jar Binks. She glanced at Liz, playfully punching her preoccupied best friend in the shoulder. What do you think, Liz? Is Alex more of a druid or a Wookiee? Liz mustered a feeble smile at her friend's light-hearted banter. She knew they were both working overtime to raise their spirits, and she didn't want to disappoint them, but she couldn't help it. She still felt like an emotional basket case. Her nerves were shot, and she jumped at every unexpected noise or movement. Her eyes relentlessly scanned the surrounding scenery, half expecting to see Joe Morton. Oh, hold on. Got my blinds. Okay. Half expecting to see Joe Morton, gun in hand, reappear without warning. I've never felt this scared before, she thought, not even when the FBI or the Skins were chasing us. Granted, there was nothing overtly threatening about their present location. The three teenagers, all 100% human, sat outside the cavern's bustling visitor center. The blazing sun, burning brightly overhead, baked the packed parking lots in an arid desert terrain around them, keeping the temperature in the upper 90s, even in the shade. Spiny cacti and flowering red agave and octillo bushes sprouted stubbornly from the dusty brown soil surrounding the low one-story visitor center. A nearby wooden kiosk displayed a variety of posted notices regarding park safety and regulations. None of the notices, Liz guessed, said anything about how to cope with fearsome, trigger-happy monsters from your past. She watched a vulture circle slowly in the cloudless blue sky stretching over the desert, the grim harbinger of death doing little to dispel the disturbing memory of her own excruciating brush while with mortality lying wounded and bleeding on the scuffed tile floor of the crashdown. Nor did the scorching sun drive away the numbing chill that seemed to have settled into her flesh and bones for good. The rocky Guadalupe Mountains loomed on the horizon, harsh and forbidding, like her life now seemed to be. How are you holding up, kid? Maria asked sympathetically, abandoning her and Alex's happy act. I don't know, Liz confessed, grateful for a shoulder to cry on. I can't stop thinking about it, the shooting at the crashdown, I mean. Her yellow, formally green sweater was crumpled into a ball on the seat of the bench, but she was still overdressed from the torrid heat of the New Mexican summer. The visitor center, only a few yards away, was air-conditioned, but she just wasn't ready to deal with a building full of strangers right now. Despite the raging sun cooking the three teens to a crisp, Liz craved privacy and quiet more than she needed relief from the heat. I know I should be over it after all this time. Max healed me right away, so I was really only hurt for a couple of minutes. But ever since I saw Morton again, it's like it's happening all over again. Perched atop back of the bench, Alex kept looking over at the front door of the center. Liz knew he had to be wondering what was keeping Isabel. That's perfectly understandable, he assured Liz. I got beaten up on the way home from school once, and for weeks afterward, I couldn't walk that route without looking over my shoulder the whole time. He squinted into the glaring sunlight, keeping an eye out for Isabel and or Morton. I got over it eventually, he told Liz. So will you. I hope so, she thought despairingly. She hated feeling so weak and fragile. I've been captured by alien shapeshifters, for heaven's sake, and lived to tell of it. So why has this left me such a wreck? She choked back a sob as she buried her face against Maria's shoulder. Tears streamed down from her eyes. Sighing in sympathy, Maria held on to Liz's shaking frame. Oh, gee, she murmured, sounding choked up herself. Maria took a restorative sniff from a vial of rosemary oil, then waved the tiny glass bottle under her distraught friend's nose as well. Look, Liz, if you want, I can drive you home in the Jetta right now. Alice can wait for our alien buddies and hitch a ride home in the Jeep. Sure, he volunteered readily. No problem. You can take off whenever you want. His gawky frame, seated above Liz and Maria, provided a bit of welcome shade for his friends. Don't worry about me. Liz shook her head vehemently. The rosemary oil had done little to soothe her anguished spirit. No, I can't. Not yet. She was in no shape to face her parents, not in the fragile state she was in. They had no idea what had almost happened to her in the crashdown that day, let alone everything she'd been through since. There's no way I could hide what I'm feeling from Mom and Dad, she realized. Okay, Maria said soothingly. No rush. Just wanted you to know you got the option whenever you feel up to it. Thanks, Liz managed with difficulty. She knew she couldn't stay here, sitting on this bench forever. But the mere thought of doing anything else, taking any kind of decisive action, was just too daunting. Where are Max and Michael? She fretted in an agony of suspense, terrified that something horrible would happen to them while they were trailing Morton to who knew where. Shouldn't they be back by now? She needed to know that Max was safe and coming back to her soon. Who will heal him? She tormented herself if both he and Michael are shot. In her mind's eye, she could see Morton taking aim at the only boy she had ever really loved. Bang! A sudden loud explosion caused Liz to leap to her feet and let out a gasp of sheer terror. Her heart pounded like a jackhammer, and she was suddenly back at the crashdown again, feeling the bullet slam into her belly, knocking her to the floor. The smell of smoke and burned gunpowder filled her throat, and she clutched her stomach in alarm. Help me! Max! Maria! I've been shot! No, Liz, it's okay. Maria grabbed onto Liz's arm to keep her from running away in fear. She thrust her face in front of Liz's, trying urgently to penetrate the instant panic stampeding through her front. It was just a car, Liz, backfiring in the parking lot. Behind her, Alex jumped awkwardly from the bench onto the sidewalk, coming to their assistance, a dismayed look upon his face. Only a car, that's all. A car? Liz didn't understand. Adrenaline flooded her body, spurring an uncontrollable urge to run for safety. She tugged on her arm, trying to break away from Maria's steady grip. Her frantic eyes searched wildly for Joe Morton and a smoking gun. A car? She dimly registered, blinking in fright and confusion. But I was shot, wasn't I? Pain, or the memory of pain, throbbed below her ribs. She looked down apprehensively, expecting to see blood gushing from her abdomen, seeping through her lightweight cotton t-shirt, but saw nothing of the kind, not even a single charred bullet hole in her shirt. A car? She asked uncertainly. Her friends flanked her on both sides, offering her reassurance and support. That's right, Marie insisted once more. She took Liz's hand and gave it a comforting squeeze. It was just a car, Liz. Alex seconded Maria's empathetic assertion. It's okay, Liz, he said, taking hold of her other hand. There's nothing to be afraid of. Everything's fine. Really? Liz wondered, hopefully. The unreasoning panic began to subside as her friend's calming words sank in. She felt her pulse slowing to something closer to normal. Her breathing grew softer and more regular as she shakily contemplated the adjacent parking lot, which was crammed with dusty station wagons, SUVs, and vehicles from all over the country. It could have been a car, her fear-stricken mind gradually conceded. That ear-shattering, nerve-jingling bang might have just been a routine backfire, brought on by a faulty muffler or carburetor. But what about the pain, the agonizing impact of the bullet striking her flesh? She could have sworn that she'd been shot once more. Liberating her hand from Marie's consoling grasp, she gripped the bottom of her t-shirt and tugged the fabric upwards, needing to see for herself that she was indeed unharmed. Her worst, most dire fears and expectations were not at all allayed when both Alex and Maria gasped out loud at the sight of her exposed belly. Filled with fear and trepidation, she looked down and let out a startled cry herself. Oh my God, she whispered. There was no wound, no blood, but something else caused her eyes to widen and her jaw to drop. There, emblazoned on the quivering flesh of her bare stomach, was a phosphorescent silver handprint, glowing brighter than the noonday sun. That's how chapter 5 ends.
It's exciting. I've never read these before, so it's always like it's hearing it for the first time.
Yep, me too. Same here.
Well, I want to have time for Jess to get in here so she can do her book goddess thing. We'll just call you book goddess, Jess.
Yeah.
Jess is the book goddess.
Yeah. Or the Roswell book series expert, a resident book expert. Jody lives like more. We are going to do more. I should say I'm available tomorrow, and I think at least for this Friday, I could be available around the same time, around 7 o'clock Central. So if you guys want, you can come back tomorrow and Friday. Looks like Michelle and probably Jess will make themselves available as well. because we want to get through this book as quickly as we can for all of you who do not have these books in your possession.
Jess says keep going.
No book chat? I mean, I don't know. How long is the next chapter? Because I'm not sure.
It's pretty long. It's probably like closer. It's probably a 15-minute chapter.
And we're going to get cut off probably in about 20 minutes. So we'd have to speed through that pretty quick.
Come on, Jess. Get in here and chat and update us.
Yes. Yeah, because I don't know. I might trip over some words and it might take more like 15 to 20 minutes and then we'll get cut off. So
I didn't practice these chapters. How am I supposed to read one?
She's saying read fast and don't do the recap. No, come on, Jess. Thank you to the two of you who donated too. I like so love seeing that. That makes my heart happy because NAMI is an organization dear to my heart. I actually did go on a NAMI walk. I think a year or two ago with my Celebrate Recovery family. So that was great. Okay, now she's relenting. She's gonna come in, so. Yay! Okay, so I guess I'm gonna add her in and then say goodbye to you, Michelle.
All right, thanks everybody.
All right, good reading. Good job.
Thanks. You too.
All right. Going to get Jess on here. Hopefully her kids aren't too loud. And we're just going to recap, and then tomorrow night we'll be back. Hello.
That was slow. It jumped right on. Hi.
Hi.
How are you? I'm all right. Hi, guys. Good reading. It's good. It's going to get better. You're not going to want to stop. That's the problem.
Yeah, well, I'm trying not to like read ahead unless I'm like practicing reading for you guys. Trying not to trip over the words too much, but when you like want to get through the chapter, you're like, oh, to trip over some words. But I think you guys give us some grace with that. Oh, just left. Come back. Let me see if I can get back in here. I don't know what happened.
That was weird. It kicked me off.
How dare you do that, Instagram? Come on.
I didn't touch it. And I was like, watching. I'm like,
God.
this is weird. It was weird.
So
Yeah.
do you remember what happens in the next two chapters that we'll read tomorrow?
Well, a little bit.
Can you give a
The
little
handprint.
of what you remember?
The handprint came back, and so she's freaked out. She's really freaked out. I know they get a hotel room, and they stalk the guy. Like, Max is, like, wanting to get him. He's, like, not leaving until he figures out what to do with this guy. He's scared for Liz. And poor Liz is all coward. She's not her normal self, so I know that they talk a lot about, what is it when you're like afraid all the time and things keep coming back to you? There's a name for it and I can't think about it. It's called. But I know they talk a lot about that and about trying to figure out why she's freaking out like this.
So is it like post-traumatic stress, you mean?
Yeah, that's it. Yes, because Alex talks about that a lot to her. But they're great. It's really great to see their friendship because you can see that it's more in this book. How much, we knew that they were really good friends, but you get to see it in this one. They're all coming together to try to calm Liz down. Yes, PTSD, that's it. So, I know that there's a lot of action coming up too. And Isabel's going to do some dream walking. She got that number for a reason. She did that. She set him up because she knew that there was some going on. I see your blinds again.
I know.
She knew that he was creepy. She knew it, and she knew that he was up to no good. And the whole fact that he worked for the government, Yeah, it's all connected. It's all connected. They were in Roswell for a reason that day. So you'll find all that out. It's coming. Good story. I would have never thought that. Just seeing it, the guy in the pilot episode, I would have not thought that at all. That there was another story with that, but it's pretty
Well,
cool.
Michelle's asking, does Isabel dreamwalk the creeper?
Yeah, the other creeper. Yes, both of them actually. She gets stuck in there a little bit, and you get to see all kinds of creepiness with him. He's awful, awful. She does not like it. It does not make her comfortable, but she's trying to do it to try to figure out what's going on. So,
Well, I figured she was talking to him as like a good distraction or whatever, and also to get as much information as she could.
and also, I have to confess. So Michelle and I were talking earlier, and I have this book in the wrong place. Yeah, I was mad. I know.
No!
I said, well, dang, I'm gonna have to redo my list now. So
It's not the first book in the series, or is it?
It is the first one. It is the first one.
Well, I mean,
that is correct.
Supposed to read, like,
right. However, it takes place way earlier than that, because she mentioned they're together. Max and Liz are together in that. Hold on a second. Don't touch that screen. I'm my kid. Sorry. Max and Liz are together in that, right? And we know Tess is there because they said she just read in that last chapter how she said that something happened when he tried to get her back after. So we know it takes place after when Tess is there. So what was the? And then we realized they talked about the Congresswoman, right? She's dead. So we know that.
Yeah.
So we think it happened a little bit earlier than what I thought. So right after the congressman dies and Isabel's birthday, I think that's when this happens, because that's when they're still technically together. Because after that, they kind of fizzle out. Because her and Tess, like Max and Tess, start getting closer. It can't be.
So it happens before the end of the world episode when she gets
yeah.
Max.
Yeah. I hope it's not one of these. She mentions Max mentions something about Kyle and that, and it throws me off. See, there's some things that the authors didn't take. They didn't do the details. Sometimes they overlook them, and they'll say something, and you're like, "Well, that was 2 episodes before this." So that's why the timeline sometimes throws you off. It happens. Because when we were talking about it today, I said, "You know what? You're right. This is before the goo." She's right. She got me. Michelle, what am I going to do with you?
Well, this is good to know. So you'll have to re-edit that picture you have where it says, "Okay, watch season 1 up until this episode."
Right. And now I don't trust myself.
Still, and then a little bit.
Yeah, we have it's still all of season 1. So you still got to watch all of season 1. And you at least have to go until the Congress lady is dead in season 2. So that's to her birthday, which is, I think, episode 3. So I'm gonna have to revamp it. So I'm gonna have to watch. Oh darn! I'm gonna have to watch those couple episodes and see where this fits in, which is my homework, which is fine homework for me. I'll take it, and I'll redo it. I'm gonna redo my list. But I told her, I said, I'm not putting a new list out until we go through them all to check myself now. I don't trust it. I do know that, because No Good Deeds happens after the Christmas episode. So we have to have the Christmas episode before that can happen. So I do know that has to be in the right place. And then the goo is how they turn green. So we have to have that as well. So I'm in the right spot. I think I'm just off an episode or 2. I mean, there's a lot going on.
This is why you needed to come on, because otherwise we wouldn't have known this until maybe tomorrow. So
No, that's fine. I was afraid he was going to scream. He's being good. So life for the 3-year-old, let me tell you. So Yeah. So then I was like, I'm supposed to be the expert, and I got it wrong. No. But it's harder. As I was talking to her, I
It's
said,
tricky because there's only really subtle clues, right, to kind of let you
yeah,
know where it falls
tiny
in
little
the
things
timeline.
that they say, and I got to remember it through the whole book. And remember, like, I was adamant, and I read all these. I originally read that one out of place anyway, because I thought Little Green Man was first. So I read that first, and then I was like, oh wait, I'm wrong. So when I first read it, I did it wrong. So I knew that I had to switch it, but it's okay. We'll get it down, and then I'll pass the love again. It's
You'll
easier to
repost
talk
a
to
new
somebody.
list for us, and you'll let us know what the new order is that is correct
I'm
this
not taking
time.
it down because Jason did it, so it's staying up. So
Listen a bit on.
I'll put another one, and I'll put like
There we go.
revisions
Now you're back.
there. Yeah. So I mean, I ain't taking it down because Jason liked it, so it's staying up. But I'll put, hey, I fixed it. Here's the new order for you.
And it's great because we get so much more Alex in these books, which I know a lot of people loved Alex. And
I lost you. What did you say? I'm sorry.
I was saying it's really nice to see more of Alex in the books because a lot of us loved him so much and were sad when he was
Right.
gone in the
And there's
show.
more
And
Kyle coming. I know. I
more
love reading
Kyle.
Alex's lines. Yeah, I love reading Alex's lines. They're great. They're just, you can picture him saying it. That's the best part. You can totally picture him. And then after Alex is gone, we get a heck of a lot more Kyle too, which is nice also. It's great to see some of these other characters get some more action.
Do we get more Kyle? We get more Kyle and Isabel friendship, right? A little bit in the books because
Oh
I know
yeah.
Dream has them right on
Yep. That's
freezing
all about them.
a little bit.
You'll
Okay.
it's kind of like a mini series. You'll jump back and forth. You'll jump between um, Liz and Max are doing one thing, and then you'll have those two doing the other thing. Because it's all about the tapping, the tap tap tap. It's all about that because he is conflicted. But you also learn more about his mom that left. You learn a little about that, about how traumatized he was by that, and little things that happened when his mom left and how he felt about it, and his and Sheriff Valenti is in it too, a lot more too. And
Okay.
he's also in the after graduation books too. He comes back and he's one of the people that help fight the special unit as well. So you get some more of the father son action going on too. So it's you get a lot of everybody's great.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
All right. Rachel,
I'm gonna get
so many people, a couple people are like so sad, about Alex on the show.
I
But
know it.
I think pretty much everyone in here has seen the entire show, so it's no surprise that we know what happens to Alex. But um, he's such a beloved character, and I know I
I
still to
know.
this day will probably want to meet Colin Hanks and just scream Alex and give him a big hug, and he's probably gonna think I'm
I know.
crazy, but I still want to. I'm sorry. You're my
My name's
Alex.
Alex.
So, I mean, no offense to like the new show and everything. So, the Alex on there is awesome too. But I mean, we're partial to the original. We're big fans of the original. So,
Yep. Alex, poor Alex. I know. He still hates Tess. Let's see, which one? Little Green Men has Tess in it a lot. So yeah, I'm like,
well, that's good for maybe Emily D. Raven fans. So, I mean,
so we'll get a couple. The good thing is, there's only 2 more books before Tess is gone. So we have to put up with her a little bit. but it's not, and it's funny to watch the reaction with Tess and Liz because you can tell they hate each other, and you read it instead of watching it, but you can just see the look that she gives him and or her, and it's just funny. I'm still laugh out loud, and I still growl. I'm still like, oh, gross,
Wow.
Tess.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah,
And it's so descriptive with everything, like all the descriptions of everything. They're so descriptive. So that's why I've been tripping over some of the words because I'm like, my gosh, they're very specific.
yeah, yeah. I really like too that right when we went into the series and we went into season 3, we just saw Max and Liv just jump in together again, which is great for us dreamers. But
Mhm.
in the books, she's pissed and she's like, because he's trying, and she's like, no, I don't trust you. I don't trust you, which I like because I thought it was awful suspicious that they jumped in so fast like that too. Like, well, you had a baby with somebody else, your alien lover. Like, what's all this about? And
Wow.
and it's like that first episode, he's like, oh yeah, you're still holding on to that? Yeah. But you see that dynamic about how she feels and how she does not like it. And she feels like he's not as focused on her as he was. So you see all that too, which is great. So a lot of great stuff coming.
It's
I
good.
hate Tess.
We
I'm
got
sorry, I
one
do. Ugh.
fan. We got, I think, one Tess fan in here. And Rachel said she
I
loves
know.
Emily. She's just not happy with
Oh,
Tess.
I know. I love it. You know that somebody's a good actress when you hate them because they were
Yeah.
so great. That's the way I love her. She's great at everything she does, but in my eyes, she's always going to be Tess. And I can't stand. I love you. You're a great actress. You were great because I hated you. Yeah. Yeah, and that's why like they interviewed her about how she felt about her character, and she's like, well, the best thing I could do was blow up. Like that whole time when she came back with the baby, like she
Right.
felt she had to do something because she screwed it all up. But
That was kind of her one redeeming thing about her is she knew
yep, that was her
she
redeeming quality. Yeah,
did
very
terrible
much.
things. And this was kind of like her way of, making, I guess, amends for it by blowing herself.
I was like, oh darn,
It's like, okay,
so
nobody
bad.
likes me, nobody wants me here, so let me just do y'all a favor.
I'm sorry, you messed with them. You know what? You would have went after Kyle. You would have. I don't care who you went up with. Just leave Max and Liz alone, okay? You're messing with our
Right.
people,
Leave Max and
and you
Liz
did it
alone and don't
wrong.
kill
And
Alex.
you,
Maybe I would have been okay with you.
right? And you killed Alex. You killed, not you tortured his mind, and then you lied about it and made poor Kyle, who's already
Right.
feels like an outsider. You made him carry the body. I don't think so, girl. You're gone. Nope, no redeeming.
Yeah, rewatching those whole episodes is going to be very like, like kind of almost cringeworthy for me.
Yeah.
Your Name is not an episode I would normally go back and rewatch because it's so sad. But we'll
No,
get
I
there.
still get upset.
All right, last minute questions, anybody? Because we are under 2 minutes to go. And then I have to hop on a call with a friend. Going to help my new Toastmaster secretary because I'm changing roles. I'm going to be the vice president of public relations for my Toastmasters Club, which is basically like, public relations. So that helps because I'm so good with social media. So it's my thing.
Yeah.
We pretty
We're
much
gonna do this
lacked
again
any
tomorrow then?
presence. So yes, tomorrow, if you're available, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. your time. So I think we'll do it then. So we'll be back tomorrow, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern, and then Friday, same time. Does that work for
Yeah,
you?
we'll shoot for Friday too.
And I think
Um,
Michelle,
and if
that'll
you
work.
guys think of questions that you want to ask me, DM me or ask me
Yeah.
tomorrow or whatever, because I will answer what I know. And if I don't know, I'll find it for you.
Yes, she will. That's true.
I will.
Allison says her dad does Toastmasters. That's awesome. Yeah, my dad actually did Toastmasters too. I didn't know until he told me. Like, I told him that I did Toastmasters, and then he told me he did Toastmasters, and he actually found like this old pin of his from Toastmasters, which was awesome. So it's kind of great, and I didn't know that about him until I told him that I was a Toastmasters. So it's fantastic. So we're very excited. We will see you tomorrow for another book reading. DM Jess at BSU Anthro Girl for any other questions. And that wraps it up for us. So yes, tomorrow there is another one, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. And we will raise awareness for another charity. Bye, everybody.